Okay, so my layer structure kind of comes in two parts. There's the materials part and then the blocks part. So let's look at the materials first. Um, there's a document that I work off of that I stole from my friend, um, where all of the materials are kind of there already. So anything that I am actually going to use, I pull a pre-made layer out of that document and pull the layer itself into my document so that I can just reuse the same thing. The nice thing about that is that now that I've been using this system for like a couple of years, every time I glance at something, I can just glance at this and know that it's a piece of 2 by or 4 by wood or whatever. Um, Same thing with MDF. Like I'm familiar with the colors, 3/4 ply, all of that stuff just is familiar now, so I don't have to worry about like what does this color mean, because it sort of has meaning now. It doesn't always work that way, but it's kind of nice. um I also tend to give myself a few layers of working layers where like this is stuff where I'm going to draw things and then I can easily turn it on and off. I usually have at least two, one for like one material when I'm working and another for another material when I'm working. It's up to you if that's a thing that you want to do. I also give myself some guidelines. So, and I put those on their own layers so that I can turn them on and off as I'm working. And a lot of times when I'm getting done with my drawings, I will go through and delete them. Um, and it looks like, so I haven't done that yet here. So this is like, actually, that's how the sheets were originally going to be laid out. Now that this is bullshit, bye. Um, yes, and I could just turn all of those off because I don't need them anymore. They gone. Um, and then the other section that I usually have is like an XREF section. This doesn't literally refer to XREFs. This is like things that I have brought in from other people's drawings. So, like I say XREF because it's a cross ref. Anyway, whatever. So a lot of times it is an XREF. So if I have G's wall drawings, for example, I would go to here, or I could just type XREF. Oh, hey, look at that. It's right there. Cancel. I'm going to say reload. And then I'm going to give that drawing its own layer. And then I'm going to put that XREF thing onto that layer. Like that. So now, if I start my freeze command by typing freeze or layer freeze, I can just click on it and it goes away. And ideally, this would... I'm going to fix that later. But anyway, ideally that would be at 0, 0, 0, or like the 0, 0, 0 on the ground plan would be at 0, 0 in the drawing, so that I can just bring it all back together. Okay, this is the good part. When I do my blocks, I do them based on what's going to be plated with what. So this MDF layer is going to be plated with the other MDF layers. So all of that is a unit. And I can think of it as like a step in the build process rather than like a thing that goes on top of another thing. I don't know if that made any sense. But like I don't need to know this at the same time that I need to know this, if that makes any sense. So it's on its own layer. I'm going to get rid of it. And it's also a block. Okay, so let's talk about that. So let's look at this platform right here. So this platform is really 3 different blocks. There is the lid block, there is the frame block, and then there's this like extension sweepy block, right? So each one of those is their own block. Each one of those is also their own layer. So you'll see here it says platform something something. So if you scroll up here, it says platform, downstage, frame, lid, and sweep. So those 3 things, actually my labeling should say, I should make that downstage sweep so that it all sorts together. Yas. So now if I don't want to see this, I can just turn it off. with freeze, or I can bring it back by, it's frozen there. I can bring it back by unfreezing it here. And that means that if there's something that like I've added to a wall, for example, or added to this, like let's say that I've been working on making sure that the lid actually fits onto this frame, but then I'm done with that. I don't want to see it anymore and I need to make an edit to the frame. I just make it go away so that I don't have to see it anymore. And I can easily navigate through all of that. I think I isolated these, yeah. And you can see that I've done that here as well as here. This is its own layer. So, and like the fact that I'm clicking on them and they're disappearing means that, oh, those were not added into that layer. Or into that block. I should fix that. But like every single piece that's its own thing that I'm going to plate as its own thing is its own block. The downside to that, which you probably have started to come across as you started to plate, is that if you need to separate everything out, then you can't do that while it's a block. So I will generally have like an area where I'm bringing the blocks over and then exploding them so that I can grab the individual bits and pieces. One of the drawbacks to that is that if you make an edit to one of these little pieces, it does not carry back over into the block over here. So just be careful about editing the things here. You want to make sure that you edit here and in the actual block, because once it's exploded, it's no longer associated with a block. So there is that. But that's how I get like this sheet. This is all bits and pieces. Oh, angular exclamation points. This is all bits and pieces. Those are all view based off of these pieces. And then, I don't know why I set them up like that. I just did. And then the pieces here, these are all view based off of these pieces here. The more complicated your drawings get, the better, the happier I have been with being really careful about my layer structure and being really consistent. So like the big thing is have a purpose to how do you organize it. When I first started learning this system, I found myself frustrated that I was making a block and a layer for every single thing. And now that I'm used to it, I can't imagine working without a system like this, because it just means that I have so much control over what I can turn on and turn off. So for example, let's say that I don't want to see any of the MDF anymore. I can also go down and say, I don't want to see MDF. And the MDF turns off because it has because there are multiple associations. The block is associated with a layer, and then the materials within the block are associated with a layer. Or the objects within the block, because like I say, materials, they're not really materials. AutoCAD is not that smart. What do we think this is? Inventor? Anyway, so it can be useful for things like, this as well, where I say, okay, I don't want to see the MDF. Well, maybe I don't even want to see the plywood anymore on any of it, and all I see now is just the structure, and that way you end up having a whole lot of control over what you can see and when. There are a couple of settings you should be aware of. One of them is if you type freeze, pay attention to settings down here, because you can also have, you can also say, all right, enter block selection nesting level. So you can have nested blocks. So I could say none, which means the thing that I click on, whatever layer the thing that I click on is, like the top layer, or like the block, like before I even get into the blocks, that's the thing I want you to turn off. That's my default mode usually. But if I'm getting like fussy about things, maybe I'll go in and start clicking on, and it just kind of changes what you're able to freeze and unfreeze. And you have to just kind of play with it for a little bit. Like if I click blocks entity, I think that'll, I don't know, weird things happen. Anyway, but it's a thing to play with. I usually leave mine on none for the most part. Oh, the place that this is most obvious is when you've XREF something in. So if I bring up my clean ground plan and section and I type freeze and I do settings, block selection, block. Let's see what this does. Yeah, so I can go in and actually start freezing things within this master, or within this, like, within that clean ground plan and section. Or if I change that setting to none, I click on it, the whole thing goes away. So it depends on what you're doing and what you need to do within the drawing. But yeah, like layer management is definitely a thing that will like up your game and up your ability to work more efficiently. Strongly recommend blocking by group, or not by group, but by like bits of the unit. So like, you know, a block for the lid, a block for the frame, a block for this attachment, as opposed to a block for all of this. Because like the block for all of this is nice for like clicking purposes, I guess, but it's not that useful as a person that's still trying to edit and like make the thing correctly. So yeah, there's that. I think I've rambled enough. I hope this was helpful. I'm gonna pop this up for a second just so you can see. Oh, let me show you something else. You will notice that when I open up Layer Properties Manager over here, oh, it didn't do it because I was just recently, because I had recently closed it or whatever. But usually this starts somewhere in this vicinity near 0, like where 0 is visible. So I use all of these other like punctuation marks at the beginning to put things like, I know that if I'm scrolling up, everything here is something that I've created, as opposed to it being something that's like pulled in from somewhere else, like all of this stuff down here. I'm also using numbers to like force it to sort it in an order that is helpful for me. So like when I'm getting ready to do my layers for these, I know that I have to scroll up, and it's just like a thing that I naturally do now because I've been doing this for so long. And then I know if I need my guides, I'm going to scroll down a little bit and they'll be right about there. So like start getting into consistent habits with this kind of stuff. It's very helpful. The other thing is you can also do like $signs, I think, sort before this. So if I do like, I usually do my CNC stuff like $CNC, and then it sorts it at the very top. So like use that to keep things together. You'll also notice that I have this stuff like labeled as like large thing, and then what it is, small, like, so platforms, which one, which part, platform, which one, which part, platform, which one, which part, platform, which one, which part, or which part, rather. Stairs, which one, so within stairs, which one, which part, which one, stairs, which part, etc., etc. So that the things that are similar to each other are grouped together. And that's just kind of arbitrary, but it does help to be able to say, like, I'm looking for things in the same region and grouping them together by like literally naming them something. So that's helpful. I haven't done this for very long, like created a separate layer for plating alone. But like all of this stuff would end up on the for plating layer. In fact, let's do it and see what happens. It means all of like the information about which thing is what goes away, but it also means that if I don't want to see it anymore, I just click it and it goes away. So there is that. Okay, for serious, enough rambling. Feel free to ask questions. But yes, proper layer management is the difference between like child's play and grown-ups. In the most wonderful and endearing way. Like if you look at the layer management from the wall unit that I made like ages ago, like my first year in grad school, like you can see my layer management going from like absolute trash garbage to this. And uh the amount of frustration that I felt on that show because of the my inability to control things was very significant and very real. So, yes, layers are your friends. Use them to control things. Okay, bye.